It was 1861, and the Civil War had broken out between the northern states and those in the South. As the war continued, the need for help grew, especially for the wounded soldiers. Many would agree that with the help from the strong woman Clara Barton, our world has changed and many lives have been impacted for the better because of her. Clara Barton took up the responsibility of defending the rights of wounded Union and Confederate soldiers during the Civil War, the effect of which is still seen today. Clara Barton was known to be a hardworking person, and at a young age felt a responsibility to aid for the health of others. Clarissa Harlow Barton, known as Clara, was born December 25, 1821, in North Oxford, Massachusetts. Clara's first experience as a nurse was when she was a teenager. She cared for her seriously sick brother David for 2 years, day and night, and nursed him back to health. It was an experience that would share her destiny and change the lives of millions of people around the world. At the age of 18, she began teaching and established a school for the children of mill workers. Clara then later founded the first free school in Bordertown, New Jersey in 1853. However, she quit her job when she discovered the male principal had hired another man and was paying him twice her salary. Clara said she would never work for less than a man. She then moved to Washington, D.C. in 1854 and was hired as a recording clerk for the U.S. Patent Office. Barton was being paid the same rate as men, which at the time was unheard of. In addition, she was one of the very first women to work for the federal government. Unfortunately, her job was then terminated under President James Buchanan's administration. Clara went back to her job in the U.S. Patent Office after Abraham Lincoln was elected in 1860 as a copyist. However, she only worked there for a short amount of time once she felt a certain urge that would change her life forever. In 1861, Clara Barton quit her job and went to go help wounded soldiers. In the beginning of the Civil War, she was still living in Washington. According to the National Museum United States Army, the 6th Massachusetts Militia was marching through Baltimore when they were attacked by Southern sympathizers. Barton heard that most of the men from 6 who were injured were transported to Washington, and they were being cared for in the capital. She rushed over to help and created a beautiful bond with the soldiers. She also would raise funds to purchase supplies for soldiers, even sometimes using her own money. However, while Clara was working in Washington, she felt that she would be a greater help if she was closer to the fighting. In 1862, Barton finally received official permission to transport supplies to battlefields. Before leaving Washington, she wrote a letter saying goodbye to her brother and sister-in-law. After she moved, Clara was there to help at every major battle in Virginia, South Carolina, and Maryland. During this time, it was unusual for women to be caring for soldiers in intimate situations. Clara Barton thought of herself as the equal to any man. Most women would never go directly into battle to help wounded soldiers, but Clara wasn't like the rest of them. She states, "I always try to secure the wounded until medical aid and supplies could come up. I could run the risk. It made no difference to anyone if I were shot or taken prisoner." During the Battle of Cedar Mountain in Virginia, the surgeon on duty was shocked to see Clara at the front. He wrote, "I thought that night if heaven ever sent out an angel, she must be one. Her assistance was so timely." Due to Clara Barton's hard-working actions, she was later awarded the title Angel of the Battlefield. This began her lifelong career of helping others in times of need. Besides helping wounded soldiers during war, many don't know that Clara Barton also fought for women's rights. When she was working as a copyist and clerk in 1854, she had little job security. Due to that, their jobs could be eliminated at any time without warning. In addition, while she worked in the patent office, she would encounter harassment from her male coworkers frequently. As Clara's career path evolved, her passion for women's rights did as well. She became an outspoken supporter of the women's suffrage program and spoke at 5 conventions for this association. She was very good friends with Susan B. Anthony, who spent more than 50 years lobbying for women's rights, particularly the right to vote. The American Red Cross also became an ally of the National Council of Women. This was requested to Clara Barton by May Wright Sewell in a letter. In a J. Franklin Dyer's The Journey of a Civil War Surgeon, he writes harsh commentary about Clara Barton's help during the Civil War. He states in his journal, "I see that Miss Barton, who was at the Lacey House last December, is down at Morris Island. I hope she will stay there or not come here. She plagued me so that I had to get her out of the cookhouse and put one of my own men in charge." Although Clara Barton received a lot of criticism for being a woman, this didn't stop her from helping wounded soldiers. The effects after the Civil War left many soldiers dead and missing. With the help from Clara Barton, she was able to help families find their loved ones. At the end of the war, sick Union prisoners had arrived in Annapolis, Maryland to be taken care of. While Clara was working with the survivors, she realized how urgent it was to provide information to families of missing Union soldiers. She took on this responsibility and wrote a letter to Abraham Lincoln in 1865 requesting permission to become an official government corresponding to finding those who had vanished during the battle. In March of that same year, Clara started the Missing Soldiers Office. The office was open for 3 years, and they received more than 60,000 letters from families looking for their loved ones. To spread awareness about the missing soldiers, a list of names of the men would be put in newspapers across the country. Clara Barton finally closed the office in 1868. With the help of her and her team, they had found more than 22,000 missing men. In addition, they provided families with closure if their soldiers did not survive. This played a significant role in Clara Barton's life towards founding the American Red Cross. After the Civil War, Clara Barton's health was beginning to fail because she suffered from exhaustion. She decided to travel to Europe for a break. While she was there, she learned about the Red Cross. A war was going on in France when she visited, so she stayed and helped for 6 weeks. Clara got to experience working with the Global Red Cross, which provided help to any war victims in need of aid. After years of assisting others in the health of soldiers during tough times, she realized her true career in life. When Barton returned back to Washington, she was so inspired that she urged to open a Red Cross in America. Clara Barton founded the American Red Cross on May 21, 1881. Her next mission was to ratify the Geneva Convention laws. These are laws that to this day protect the war wounded and the citizens in conflict zones. After the Geneva Convention in 1863, the first treaty of the Geneva Convention was ratified by 12 nations in 1864. This treaty declared that soldiers would be provided with first aid regardless of their nationality. The United States was not a party to the convention in 1864 because we were in the midst of the Civil War. Since Clara was the president of the American Red Cross, she was a strong advocate for the United States ratification of the Treaty of the Geneva Convention. She started by meeting with 3 presidents. President Rutherford B. Hayes was afraid that if they were to ratify these laws, they would enter into an alliance with European nations. However, President James Garfield supported the ratification, but was killed before he could endorse the treaty. On March 3, 1882, President Chester A. Arthur signed the treaty, and the Geneva Convention was ratified on March 16, 1882. By doing this, Clara would finally be able to secure human rights and protect the injured for years to come. As a result, the U.S. Congregational Charter eventually recognized the Red Cross services. The American Red Cross's first disaster response was in 1881. A forest fire had burned through about 1 million acres in 24 hours in Michigan. This disaster left thousands homeless and almost 300 people lost their lives. Clara Barton and her team collected food and supplies for 14,000 people and sent it to Michigan. After this tragedy, it was proven that the American Red Cross could respond to large disasters. They also helped with the Johnstown flood that killed over 2,000 people in 1889. In addition, on June 20, 1898, the ARC assisted the U.S. military for the first time during the Spanish-American War. Unfortunately, Clara Barton died on April 12, 1912, at the age of 90, after being the American Red Cross president for 23 years. However, after her death, the Red Cross managed to carry on her legacy by continuing to help others. In the 20th century, they expanded beyond disaster relief in the military. They began to work towards assisting people while preparing for emergencies. On October 8, 1965, the Red Cross also adopted its 7 fundamental principles. Today, the American Red Cross supplies food, shelter, and solace to those whose lives have tragically been affected by disaster. It distributes international humanitarian aid and supports veterans, military members, and their families. In addition, it supplies about 40% of the nation's blood. On average, about 120 million people outside the United States benefit every year from the Red Cross services. They also respond to about 65,000 disasters per year. The largest disaster they have ever helped with was Hurricane Katrina in 2005. During this event, the Red Cross opened nearly 1,400 evacuation centers in 27 states. In addition, they also set up more than 90 kitchens to serve meals to 68 million people. It is clear that the American Red Cross continues to provide our world with assistance and comfort during difficult times. Clara Barton's love for caring for people led her to generating the idea for an organization which works towards helping others and still stands today. As such, this relates to the topic rights and responsibilities. To this day, Clara Barton's legacy and the American Red Cross continues to have a major impact on many.